Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
Southeast Radio.
Good morning, I'm Karl Fitzpatrick and welcome to Business Matters. Well, the Managing Director of Wexford-based MGM Partnership, Micheál Mahon, has recently been elected as the new President of the Society of Chartered Surveyors Ireland. Micheál joins me now to discuss his outlook for the construction industry and why sustainability is imperative for its future viability. Micheál, start by providing us with an insight into your own business, MGM Partnership.
MGM Partnership has been trading for almost 12 years. As you know, we're headquartered in Wexford. We do a lot of work across the Dublin and the southeast in a lot of sectors. We have been doing a lot of work in the hotel sector, educational in terms of schools. We're currently involved in primary care and nursing home developments, as well as some residential developments.
Of course, you've recently been appointed as the President of the Society of Chartered Surveyors Ireland. In the midst of COVID-19, what a time to take on this role.
Yeah, thanks, Karl. I think I'm half mad, but look, it's on a serious side, it's a big honour. It's a huge honour for myself and everybody involved in MGM, and I'd like to think it's an honour in Wexford as well to take this role. It's a national role and it's a body of 5,000 members. So looking forward to the challenge for the next 12 months.
So how does the Society of Chartered Surveyors Ireland support your members?
We're all about achieving the highest standards of education in terms of our members graduating. We continuously then have CPD for people who have graduated or have become chartered members to ensure that they are still on top of their game, for the want of a better word. So we've continuously rolled out CPD, and then we have other information sharing, for example. So we'd have the society is broken down into a number of professional groups, such as my own group, Quantity Surveying Group. So there will be sharing of information and issuing of reports, such as the house building report, which we'll probably talk about later.
And Micheál, from the SCSI's perspective, what has been the impact of COVID-19 on the construction sector to date?
Yeah, it's early days, Karl, and I suppose we're still grappling with that to a degree. You know, the construction industry stopped, as you know, for a couple of months there between March and May. So it's back in action. It is trying to complete the projects that are in hand. But the big concern really, Karl, is where are we going once the projects that are currently in hand are complete? What's the pipeline of work for the industry, not just our own members? We take a broad view. What's the pipeline of work for the industry moving forward? Because it's critical, and I make no apologies for it, but I'm a strong advocate that it's important we have a sustainable construction industry in this country.
And in relation to your pipeline, have your members witnessed projects being cancelled, delayed or scaled back as a result of COVID-19?
In a short answer, yes. So obviously, you know, the construction industry works in a lot of different sectors, Karl. So I don't have to tell you, the hotel sector, a sector we were actively involved in ourselves, and retail have slowed significantly in terms of output, in terms of projects commencing. And then there are other commercial projects and indeed some residential projects where funders are, let's just say, a little less bullish than before, and certainly there's more due diligence. So we're waiting to see how this progresses now over the next few months, but certainly it looks like we're facing an uncertain time.
Now, Tom Parlin from the CIF joined me on the show a couple of months back, and at that time I put it to him that the opportunities in the construction sector over the next 3 years are mostly confined to social housing and also to multinational contracts. What are your thoughts on that?
Certainly, if you look provincially, social housing is probably where most of the action is in terms of the output, is in terms of what's happening. There's not as much private development happening. If you look at Wexford, for example, a lot of the developments that are happening around here are social housing or for approved housing bodies. If you go to some of the bigger urban locations such as Dublin, Cork, Galway, it is more viable to have private residential contracts. And look, in terms of foreign direct investment, yes, it's huge. It is, and it will continue to be so, we hope. But look, in terms of the rest of the market, commercial, we're unsure as to where that's going. We would hope that there will be some level of output continuing there as well.
Now, of course, the construction industry itself was decimated during the last recession. And of course, we lost a huge amount of talent to Australia, Canada, New Zealand and elsewhere. How can we learn the lessons from the last recession in order to minimise the impact of a COVID-19 crash?
Yeah, look, Karl, this is a really big hobby horse of mine. We need a sustainable construction industry. As an example, we've lost an awful lot of brains, we've lost an awful lot of good quality tradesmen, and particularly from Wexford due to the last recession. Would you believe that the current president of the building surveyors in New Zealand is actually a New Ross man? That's the kind of people we should be having at home. So we do need a sustainable construction industry. How do we do that? As part of the society, we are in discussions with the government through the DPAR, the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform, in relation to Rebuilding Ireland Project 2040. But what has to happen, Karl, we feel, is that, for example, there is a need for public housing. The government now, in light of the likely downturn in construction costs, should embark on a large-scale public sector housing development and get good value for the taxpayer. Prices will be coming down and the taxpayer will benefit, and will also hopefully keep the construction sector active.
I've put that point to a number of executives within local authorities in recent years.
Yep.
And the response that I've got when I've raised that point, Micheál, has always been that it's far more expensive for a local authority to go out there and enter into the world of public procurement to get houses built because of the level of bureaucracy attached to it and because of the formalities attached to that European framework.
Yeah, Karl, this is another thing we have been in dialogue with the government about. We are members of the European Union and we are bound by public procurement rules, as you know too well. However, by the same token, it's to us, there's no doubt that it is still more cost effective to build public housing where you have the land free, you don't have to apply a developer's margin. Finance should be at close to zero as government money, so it should be more cost effective. But undeniably, there's frustration, for the want of a better word, in relation to public procurement on a lot of fronts across the country, and not just in housing, in other sectors as well, such as education and other public sectors. So, but Karl, the answer is a mix between public sector output and private sector output if we're going to resolve this housing crisis.
Of course, another option, Micheál, to that as well is that the local authorities and government agencies would sell their land banks off to private developers. Is that something that you've considered?
We haven't considered that in detail, and you know what? We're in the society, we are apolitical, but you know, things like that can be unpalatable in certain political sectors. You have to look at that on a case by case and check, is there a cost benefit of doing so. We wouldn't be against it, as I say, it would have to be a case by case.
Now, of course, the Society also recently published the real cost of new housing delivery report, and it stated that the cost of building a new 3-bed house in Dublin has increased by €41,000 over the past 4 years. Is that indicative of what's happening across the country, especially in places like Wexford, Micheál?
No, again, is the short answer, Karl. Look, that report, it's a real-time factual report because we took the data from 30 developments across the Greater Dublin area. So it's factual, and that is now it's important to say it's the cost of delivering the home. It's not just the building cost. The building cost accounts for less than half the overall cost of delivering a home. You then add land costs and finance, etc., so to make up the rest. No, it's not happening in Dublin, Karl. Or outside of Dublin. I'm acutely aware in, say, Wexford, for example, you can purchase houses for 200,000 and of very good quality. So there's a number of reasons there that might be more cost effective to deliver, such as land, such as building costs will be more cost effective down here. You know, there's a number of factors, and that has always been the case, that it has been more cost effective to provide housing provincially than in the bigger urban centres.
And what advice is the SCSI providing to its members today?
Well, we've run a number of online seminars. I mean, there's multi-strands to that, Karl. So we've had some practical CPDs in relation to managing finance in relation to in during COVID-19. We've also done a lot of work in terms of digitisation because, as you said earlier, a lot of people are working from home and they're finding, maybe our office, we can do this more effectively. We can have Teams meetings. So we've helped along the way in terms of the digitisation process for our members, and we'll continue to do that. And probably most importantly, Karl, is we will share the information with our members, because we're spread right across the country, as to what our members are experiencing, so that there's a sharing of information in terms of what's happening out there in the industry.
And what's your view in relation to the current programme for government?
We are in agreement with the programme for government. We thought it was a decent programme, for the want of a better word. However, we continuously are engaging with DPAR to make sure that it is implemented. And look, that's the concern as well in relation to the impact on the public exchequer of COVID-19. Will these works continue? And it goes back to my point that we need a sustainable industry, and at this point when private sector funding is slowing and private sector output is slowing, that's where the government should step up to the plate really and ensure that there is a continuous workload for the industry.
And of course, with the debacle that surrounded the Children's Hospital, many are of the view that government agencies are very slow to launch any new projects because of the risks associated with them. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, the government, they've taken a lot of flack for the Children's Hospital. The Children's Hospital is a one-off entirely project. It's seriously complicated, and I'm just not involved, and nobody that I know of is involved in the project, so I'm not familiar with the detail to it other than what is being read in the papers. But I do know this, Karl, that across the country there are schools being built, there are other hospital projects being built quite successfully, other public procurement projects being undertaken by local authorities, by state authorities with their development teams, and they're being done quite successfully, but they don't make the headlines.
Now, the programme for government commits to the establishment of a commission of housing. Why do you believe that this is critical?
It's absolutely essential, we feel, Karl. There's no single solution as we see it to this housing crisis. So you've so many strands to it. Land is a huge strand to it. Finance, margin, VAT, the tax treatment of it. That needs all the stakeholders, including our own organisation, SCSI, but it includes, you need tax experts, you need local authorities. There's a huge input required from all the stakeholders, and it should also be, I would stress, apolitical, because we can't have political decisions being made on issues such as this. Leave it apolitical and let's try and come up and work with solutions. We have to bridge that viability and affordability gap between the delivery of houses and the affordability of houses, Karl.
On the topic of affordability, you stated that the central bank regulations for lending are creating an affordability gap for first-time buyers. Does this place new house building in a precarious position?
Just to be clear what I said, Karl, we're not knocking the macroprudential rules in terms of what we're saying. They are there, so that's a given. So that puts a limit on what people can borrow. So, and then it costs more than that to deliver the unit. So what we're saying is that we have to bridge that gap between affordability and viability. And look, Karl, I would also say the industry can't be given the free pass either in terms of the delivery cost of housing. There perhaps are other more cost-effective ways of delivering housing and apartments, etc. So the industry should step up to the plate there as well in terms of trying to reduce the physical costs of construction.
And Micheál, finally, as the president of the Society of Chartered Surveyors Ireland, what's your outlook for the construction industry over the next 3 years?
I'd say concern, Karl, to a degree over the next year or two, but I don't want to be... I'd like to see more real-time information over the next couple of months. But this is a great industry, Karl, and as long as we can have a sustainable construction industry, it's one that will certainly encourage people to become involved in, and we will get over this the same way as the industry has always done. It's a very resilient industry and has always come out the other side.
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was Micheál Mahon, the president of the Society of Chartered Surveyors Ireland, and I would like to thank Micheál for sharing his outlook for the construction sector with us this morning.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
South